And hopefully Armando's going to join us shortly for a few minutes.
All right. Yeah, and Rose, so you've got control over what gets recorded.
Yes, so I'm going to have to post it.
Well, not necessarily. Although the link to it, but in terms of like at the moment, the whichever of the like at the moment when I'm looking at the Hangout, I've got 3 boxes at the bottom. One of them is me, one of them is you, and one of them is Michael. So whichever one you're looking at will be the one that gets recorded. Now you can, for example, if you wanted to fix the recording onto my screen, you could click, you know, my the box at the bottom that's me, and it will get like a solid white line around it, and then it won't rotate as people move. Or if you want it to just like
no, I've got it on yours actually.
Okay, yeah,
I've got it locked to yours.
Cool. So well, the first agenda item that was just mentioned was, what do we do with agenda items? And that's a good point. We had been we had moved from, I mean, what we had done for a long time is we had been dropping the agenda items into the Agile Ventures site.
Right.
In the, and we were updating like a new page for the AutoGraders meetings like each time. And using and that was kind of like gradually getting more and more full up of different stuff there. And then so I sort of switched to well, let's do the issues, and we've now got lots of issues there. And now the last couple of weeks we've been so busy we haven't.
You mean issues in GitHub?
Yeah, I mean this was for a while. We transitioned from having. I mean, we could see that basically up until August last year, we were creating these things, and they were getting longer and longer. And I proposed, well, maybe just like if someone has an issue, let's open an issue, and then we have a mechanism sort of for closing it and so on. And we did that. And I guess partly where we are is that in both cases we were generating lots and lots of issues, and we haven't had, I guess, like enough hours between us to go through and close them all.
Sure. We might want to get back to this momentarily because Armando's here, and I know he's only available.
So let's focus on Armando. Armando, how's it going?
Oh, you don't need to focus on me. I look like shit. Hi, everybody.
You look. I'm talking about.
You look wonderful.
You look good to us. Yeah.
It's been a rough couple of months over here. I apologize.
Yeah.
I think that's universal. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Armando's had I think extra stuff to deal with, but yes, good to see. I haven't seen you for. Good to see you back. How is this morning going? At least, shall we say?
It's nothing bad has happened yet. So it's,
well, that's
I've lowered my expectations quite a bit. So no, it's all right. I'm slowly climbing back in the saddle. It's just not as fast as I'd like. But I'm trying to think of what specific things I have so I don't take too much time away from you guys. One thing I do have, which is going to be an experiment for us, is that for the first time, Berkeley is going to offer CS169 over the summer. I'm not going to be the one teaching it because I'm due for a break, honestly. But we're hiring an outside instructor to teach it. This is a Google software engineer who is a Cal alumna. And she is going to teach it using the Spock model, so she's going to use our materials, and it's going to be quite a challenge because over the summer, the courses are compressed into an 8-week session, but it's the same amount of material.
It's the 2 parts.
Yeah. So the same course that I teach in 15 weeks, with the exams, the project, the whole 9 yards, will be taught in 8 weeks over the summer, which means.
And how many credits is that all together?
It's 4 credits, and the mapping at Berkeley is 1 credit is supposed to equal roughly 3 hours a week of work. So nominally, students are spending 12 hours a week, including lecture time, discussion section, homework, project, everything. And we've actually done some student surveys, and it turns out that that's actually at about the right ballpark. There's variation on both sides, but it's a fair assessment. But I think that would be really useful from this group is if there's, if you could write, I don't know, 5 pages worth, if you only had 5 pages to give another instructor who's going to use this material as a Spock, what are the sort of top tips that you would give them, advice, do this, don't do that. So I'm just going to sort of put that out. I'll probably send an email to the group about this. But something like, since all instructors are in a hurry, it's kind of like, how short can we make it?
Right, sure.
Yeah.
What are the things that they absolutely must remember going into this? Both when they're preparing for the course and then while they're running it.
Right.
And she will have the benefit of working with at least one and hopefully two TAs who either have TA'd the course with me before or have very recently taken it with me, so they sort of know the rhythm of the course and how things go. But
fabulous. Can I switch topics just for a moment? God, you sound terrible. Hope you feel better. Yeah, lots of liquids. Yeah, about the book and the lectures. I just want to mention something quick because I never remember to bring it up. There is nothing that I can find in the book that discusses what a framework is. And I'm amazed at the number of students who come into the course and have no idea, or how maybe it differs from an architecture, or how it differs from an API. And we cover that. We cover that, but it's always kind of an extra. And I was thinking that would be something that would be great as a little elaboration, whether in chapter 2 or chapter 4, but I think it would be useful. And the other thing that comes up every semester, and I always forget to mention this, and believe me, this is a constant thing, is that students who are familiar with HTML know that the way that they do a link to somewhere is they have the A tag and it's href equals and blah, blah, blah. And of course, we use the helper methods, the link to, right? And for some reason, students seem to equate that with the fact that we're using Haml. They don't realize that it's not that, we are using a helper method that basically that route is defined in one place, and we can use the path, blah, blah, blah path wherever, and be consistent and have it, it's kind of like the way you would treat a name constant. And then, once you push to production, if you need to tweak things, you can do that. But, you have it defined in one place and you use it. And that just completely goes over their head.
Okay, so if I understood that correctly, they know HTML and they know the mechanics of href links, but they don't understand that these helpers that are actually just Ruby functions are providing a level of indirection to generate what they would normally create manually.
Exactly.
So it sounds like there's actually two concepts that we would want to clarify in the writing. One of them is this idea of, hey, this is just a level of indirection. It's a function that returns the string that you yourself would write if you were writing HTML manually. And then another concept layered on top of that is, how does it generate that string? Well, there's this notion of the routes file that maps URLs to things in your application. And if you ever change it, then those functions will automatically generate the right thing. Or if there's reasons that some of those URLs would have to be different in development versus production, like if you were serving images from a different server, which is the kind of thing that if someone has written HTML manually, they might know these concepts. Again, it gives you some insulation so that you never have to go manually modify. Okay, I got it.
That's exactly, you have it, spot on.
That's why they pay me.
I have actually had, like for several semesters, had students challenge me and say, well, the only reason we have to do this is because we're using Haml, and this really sucks.
Right.
And I'm like, and so then I have to find examples with ERB and say, no, that's you're completely misunderstanding.
Rose, can I jump in there and just, because I think, so Armando had those two things.
Yeah.
I think that there's something else that you're saying there that maybe wasn't in Armando's summary, which is specifically this thing about Haml. You're saying that the students think that the link to is Haml syntax.
Right, and I have to disabuse them of that notion every semester.
Show them the action view helper docs.
Yeah, well, I show them that. I show them the HTML. I show them sites where it shows the HTML rendered in ERB. I go through the whole thing. But
I think the action view helper docs are useful if you already are clear on the basic concept of what is being indirected from what.
Exactly.
I think what Rose is saying is some of her students, it's not clear that they understand that separation yet.
And it's just a consistent thing that they fall on their face on every semester.
And I think
I'll just point out,
say that there's a parallel. Go on, Armando.
I'm sorry.
No, I was talking to MIT Press yesterday. They're potentially interested in handling the second edition of the book. So I've been thinking a lot about what that would mean. And one thing that occurs to me is that when Dave and I started writing the book, it was, at least in our world, it was pretty common for students to come in knowing Java or some amount of C or maybe C++. Today, it's much more common for students to come in knowing Python. They may know some JavaScript that they've learned badly through osmosis, and they've probably touched HTML at some point. So I think a lot of the framing of, where are students coming from and which concepts that they already know do we now have to map into this new world, I think that list is changing, and there's going to be significant revision there. And I think what you're pointing out, Rose, is one example of that. If they're coming in having some informal exposure to HTML and JavaScript, we need to assume that whatever we're trying to teach them, that's the framework we're going to try to hang it on. Not Java anymore. Java is so so 2000s or so 1990s.
Yeah. I mean, they do know Python, they do know Java, they do know C, they do know C++, but still, I think the issue is that any HTML or JavaScript they've learned is informal and isn't, like, it's not certainly academic. It doesn't, it's not framed in a way that's extensible and, yada, yada, yada.
Rose, I don't know if I can just make a point there, is that I think is an interesting parallel, though, in this, like, thinking that link to is part of HAML, is I think that confusion is very closely related to people's challenge when they're trying to deal with Capybara and RSpec and Cucumber. They basically have statements that are like, expect page to have content or whatever. And I think one of the most challenging things about that, and then it may be some like CSS selector or whatever. I mean, I found this challenging, and in fact,
I feel bad because I couldn't hear while they were talking. So, but if you're interested, you can come in here until they leave.
Richard, I think I think you're talking to somebody. Great to see you, by the way. But I think Richard's in his classroom with TAs and so on. This was the main sticking point in getting the assignments to work when I first took the course, and as I continue to work on, and I now have 5 years working with Capybara and so on. It's still, this is the place that's often the most sticky in terms of getting systems to work. And I think understanding, which parts of this are RSpec and which parts of this are Capybara, and then how it relates to Cucumber is, again, with this, not understanding how the different things are contributing to the different parts of the syntax, I think is a major stumbling block for students and for seasoned engineers.
I agree.
In some cases.
Yeah.
So I think that the interesting question is then, Amanda, there's a kind of, what can we do in terms of helping them understand about, how linked to is the Ruby helper method and how it relates to the paths and the roots and so on. But I think that there's a bigger question of, in terms of when one is taking apart the syntax that one encounters throughout the different system, is how do you discover, without just knowing it in advance, which parts of the syntax relate to which libraries that you're using, and then where to find the documentation on those things?
It'd be great to have something maybe in the appendix that, lays that out, kind of like a cheat sheet or something.
Yeah, I think I need to do something about how much of it is cheat sheet and how much of it is, the perspective from which students come into this material is different now than it was 4 or 5 years ago, and maybe this needs to be up front. I mean, Sam knows this. The other thing I've been thinking about is I've long felt that we lacked a good JavaScript assignment. And also increasingly, I think in the last round of 169 projects, almost all the projects made use of some external service API in some way. And we don't really have an assignment about that. So there's a whole discussion about APIs, JSON and JavaScript, and wrapping API bindings in other languages. That's just kind of, it's missing from the book. It's in any coherent way. There's no assignment for it, and that's kind of a thing that I wanted to fix sometime during this year. So I'm probably going to come up with sort of a list of proposed major changes and proposed minor changes, and probably send it around to you guys to get your suggestions for the list as well. But I think it's going to be heading towards something that smells a lot like a second edition, maybe late this year or early next, I guess. I don't know.
Sounds good. By the way, I got some feedback from my students this week. Last week they did the Sinatra homework, and this week Well, some of them have already finished it. They've been working on the Intro to Rails homework. Some are finished, some are, about halfway through or so. And they basically reported that they found doing the Sinatra homework did indeed help them with understanding what was going on with the Rails homework.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pretty happy to hear that.
That's great. Excellent. I guess we just, so Richard has joined us. Shall we just, are there, this is a great discussion. I've got some notes here and maybe we'll go back to sticking these in an agenda place somewhere or at least distributing the notes via email. Are there other key items, rather than just diving into them, are there other key items that we want to touch on today? I know Armando has limited time. Was there anything else on your mind, Armando, that we should touch on from your point of view?
No, nothing I can think of. Like I said, I'm still kind of operating only at about 50% capacity. So
okay, yeah. Oh well, that's great that we covered.
I have a little edX fire to fight after this on the phone. So
yeah,
oh, no.
yeah. Cool. So then, Richard, did you have any agenda items?
No, I'm just here from my class, and it's just whether I get out quick enough. And I'm still in the class. The only thing, I mean, I'm barely processing what you're talking about. We had some odd Cloud9 issues where things weren't loading, and it looked like it was like, I mean, we were concerned that it was going down because we would refresh and we would get things that were not operational. So it's just a little Cloud9 flakiness, but nothing other than that.
Is that since we were talking about some Cloud9 peculiarities last Friday? Is that new stuff since then, or is that
is that new stuff? Yeah, I don't think this particular behavior we hadn't seen before, right, guys?
Sometime this week we had a little flakiness going on with Cloud9 too. I wonder if they just had some kind of weird glitchiness on their servers, but it seemed to have cleared up, and we were able to, go on and no problem now, except the usual, which is a lot of times these terminal windows just sort of give up the ghost at some point, and you just kill them and start a new one.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
that's not a big deal though. As soon as students realize, I mean, I've had students panic and say, look, just kill it, just start another one, it's okay. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we sort of had the opposite problem, is that when things were working, we were telling people not to do that because the new ones were the ones that weren't working.
Right. Okay. Rose, did you have anything else on your mind that we needed to
No,
get to?
No, not really. I mean, the only other comment that I might make is, do you recall that a group of students had trouble pushing to Heroku last
I remember
week?
we started looking at last week,
yeah, and basically they just started over and it worked the second. They probably missed an instruction or two. But what I found very interesting is the same group had trouble pushing yesterday, and I got this panicky email. Again, we can't push to Heroku, we don't know. And I had talked to them. I had said, look, you can't send me a message that has like a minimum of information, and you need to look at the log and all this other stuff. And so first I got this message, which I saw this morning because it was like some weird hour last night, and then there was another message after it that said, oh, after that happened, when we stopped panicking, we actually looked at the Heroku log, found the problem, and fixed it and pushed it successfully. So I was like, wow, they listened to the instructions. When does that ever happen?
Well done, Rose. High five.
Yeah.
I was going to say that on the topic of if major changes were going to be made to the book, this seems like another thing that, I thought we had made some attempt to treat this in one section, but I think the how to ask for help, this is kind of this is consistently the weak link in the chain for so many of my students. It's when something goes wrong, they don't seem to have a good sort of scientific method system for working through the bug. They either panic, they throw up their hands right away, they post the entire error message with sort of no attempt to deconstruct or identify what the critical bits are. So I'm not sure why students don't develop these skills, but it seems like anything that we could provide as some scaffolding for this. I think maybe it needs a stronger treatment than what we've been giving it so far. You know, maybe even an exercise on it. Like, here's a program that's going, you're going to run it and it's going to blow up in some weird way, and you got to just the homework is figure out the bug.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be great.
The bug and fix, go through the bug fixing cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's go on, Rose.
I was going to say that might even be a really great in-class exercise.
Yep. Yeah, I think the interesting thing, like I really like the section that you have, Amanda. I know I think it comes like 5.4, like midway through a chapter on other stuff. I think it could be,
it's chapter 4 or 5, I think.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of buried in the middle of something.
Yeah, I think it could be a whole chapter, and I think, like you say, like having it as actually a bug fixing assignment, because it's kind of the interesting thing is a little story from the boot camp is one of the things that I found as well is that there's a kind of almost a sort of a learned helplessness. Like, I mean, I was doing this scaffolded pairing thing with the students and kind of getting them, but like not solving any problem for them, and they'd like have an error message, and I would basically get one student to read the error message to the other student, and then I'd get the second student to ask the first student what one of the words in it meant, and so on, and then like they kind of like actually do a Google search for one of the words in the error message and like work out what it meant. And I was never providing them information, but it was like I was actually getting them to follow that process to solve the problem through a dialogue between the pair. But then I remember the comment at the end of it, it was like, wow, when you're scaffolding, it's like we actually have to think. And I'm like, yeah. This kind of this sort of, I think that there's a kind of tendency to kind of just not, it's hard thinking. And if you can kind of like say, oh, well, I just don't know, and like get someone else to help you, there's an appeal to that. And I think it's just students have got lots of things going on in their lives. They're trying to like balance their budget. They've got other classes. They've got this, that, and the other. I mean, all of us, at some level, we don't want to have to think. But it's about, sort of training that thing of, okay, let's stay calm and try to take the problem apart. I think that's why the screencasts where you actually show encountering an error and then how you deal with it are so valuable. So I think, the more upfront and center we can get this, as Rose says, a class exercise or and Amanda saying there like a bug fixing assignment, I think it's all for the better, definitely.
Yeah. Well, what's happened because computer science has gotten so popular, and we're trying to recruit so many people into it, people are getting into it, while before 20, 30 years ago, it was only the people that had that skill of figuring out these obscure error messages with no documentation and all that, that even got into it. So I think that's why it's not so much students are getting worse, but I think different people are being brought into the field. One thing that we did last week, which I'm saying out loud and recorded, so we'll share it with you, is we created a debugger tutorial that had people walk through and step-by-step try things out with the debugger. And it's helping slightly this week for the first time when we tell people, it's like, oh, what does that look like in the debugger? They're actually using it. So it seems, not in every case, but it seems to be helpful.
Have you posted the debugger tutorial somewhere? I'm sure we would.
Well, it just is hot off the press as last week. So I just while we were muted, I looked at my TAs. I said, if I commit to doing this, we'll do this. So we have 3 people here that one of us will get in posted. It's a Google Doc.
Very cool.
That'd be excellent. Yeah, let's.
Yeah, what we wanted to do, we had a first pass. We wanted to sort of update it just like based on our classroom experience with it, but we'll get it out in the next few days.
Yeah, no, that's how all good homework start. I mean, I think it'd be great if this actually turned into something that could be, even another homework, right?
Right. Well,
or if maybe there's some connection between this debugger.
Intro that it's integrated. I think we basically took one of the intro examples and had people walk through and put in the debugger statements and try things out in it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, especially if it relates to something that's already there.
Okay, I need to go because I have to get on a hangout with edX regarding something else. But I would love to see the debugger tutorial. And like I said, I think, thinking about whether there's a homework or something that we could put together that would give students specifically exercise, debug something, find the bug, fix the bug, document what you found, do a pull request that has a good commitment, kind of go through the whole bug lifecycle. Right. So maybe starting from what Richard and his students are creating would be a great idea. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Right.
Okay, I need to sign off now and go fight another fire. Thank you, everyone. I'll talk to you next week.
Good luck with the edX. Yeah, we'll catch you.
Yeah, good luck, and I hope you feel better.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.
So just thinking on the bug thing.
Go on, Michael.
do you think he would be talking about like a pedagogical example, or could you take something literally from like a AV project? We have lots of bugs.
Indeed. Well, what was the debugging tutorial thing that you were thinking about, Richard? What would be the subject matter of that? You're muted.
Oh, Richard is muted.
Yeah.
Do you know that you're muted?
Okay, I was thinking, what do you say again?
I was saying, for this debugger tutorial that is in some state of beginning to be creation, what's the subject material? What is being debugged? Is it a Rails app or just a Ruby?
No, this was just like one of the Ruby intro ones.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry,
Okay. We're gonna. Well, why don't we just bring it up on our screen?
Cool.
Okay. Let us. Can you give me a second to
take
bring
your time.
something
Take
up?
your time. Yeah. So Michael there was asking about, a particular example, or could we use something from AV? I mean, I think there's room for various. I mean, I think that the examples from AV would probably be challenging in some, like I think that would be like requiring too much context for if it's just people who are doing like parts 1 and part 2, whereas actually in part 3, if we could actually get to that, then that would be great. And
we could have basically I was thinking we could basically have like a repo where we're just in a state of a bug,
right,
and then they would have to fix it.
Right, and you can have the assignment would be to like fix this bug and submit the pull request, and the pull request could be like had CI and it would go green, and then ultimately you could just close the old pull requests. And yes, in principle one could do that.
I'm just wondering if they would need. I mean, so I'm thinking whether we would do it that basically would be like a closed example where it's kind of even a bug that we had already fixed ourselves.
Right. I mean,
it would just be like a separate repo.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the kind of thing that I get the sense that there are some people who are kind of intimidated by doing anything on a project that's kind of like in
real.
Yeah, like is real in any way. And if they can just do like a kind of an example thing and get a tick and so on.
I mean, the course already has some somewhat intimidating examples like typo and stuff.
It certainly does. It certainly does. I mean, the interesting, and of course, in typo, they're asked to fix a bug, but I guess that the difficulty, what they, I mean, I think the key thing that's missing in some ways is the kind of step by step of, how do you go through and like solve solve an issue specific to at the level. It's the interesting thing is that pedagogically the entire course is about showing you how Rails works and all of the other different parts of the stack, but it's not about the as Armand was mentioning, it's kind of like, oh, and here's how you solve problems, when it's actually that flow of, okay, you make this change, and then how would you insert the put statement or the debugger or the what have you, and what are the other things that you would check in terms of your GitHub, the Heroku and so on. I mean, in some ways, what it would be nice to move towards is a big collection of just like bugs and how they were solved. I mean, that's partly what Stack Overflow is about. But anyway, yes. But I guess we're giving.
Yeah, actually, the typo homework I think would be much more useful if it just had a little more direction with respect to the debugging of it, and to make sure that they actually just didn't kind of fall into accidentally figuring it out, and that they actually did some debugging.
Yeah, well, Amanda mentions it's a scientific. I mean, this is the scientific method. It's the process of saying like, okay, I mean, I think it is. I sympathize with the students who are trying to grapple with all the different moving parts of this, like the Git and the GitHub and the Heroku and the Capybara and the RSpec and the Cucumber and the blah, 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 and everything. There's, my ability to sort of like scientifically analyze the thing is all about. It's so much easier when you know the different components that are going on. I think doing the scientific analysis while you're trying to grapple with what the different components of the system are at all is really challenging. It looks like Richard has shared the document with us.
Yeah, that's the like first version. This is there are things that we're planning to change and improve in it.
Sure.
We just created this
Fabulous.
the night before one of our classes last week.
But great. That's fantastic. And it's very. It's the thing. I think people often get embarrassed by things being rough and ready, and they don't share them. When actually, if they, this is. I'm far too rough and ready. I share stuff. I probably next year I'm gonna work on like being completely polished rather than.
I'm not at all worried about it because this is not my work. It's one of my TAs who's like.
Oh, there you go. Oh, you're completely safe. We can completely.
No, and he did a really nice job as a
it looks great.
Draft, so yeah.
Nice. So, thanks for sharing that, Richard. That's wonderful. I think that but
so that link should stay, and then we'll update it. You'll see. And what we want to do is try and figure out where we can inject something like this in the Rails stuff. We're doing the Rails tutorial, so we may modify that. But we have to do that this week if we're going to do it.
Go on, Michael.
I was on a rough and ready thing. I once had a professor who refused to put his notes online because he said he would have to do so much work to make sure that they were presentable. Yeah. If his colleagues ever happened upon the site.
Yeah. Well, and it's like people say open source. We'll release it open source when we've cleaned it up. And it's like, yeah, of course you will. The interesting thing I was going to say there is, so it's great to see that this one is specifically for the Ruby stuff at the beginning, as Richard's saying there. I mean, every assignment could include kind of a, example, here were problems we found and how we debugged them as part of the resources. I mean, of course, the difficulty with all of these things is, even if you create all this stuff, is getting the students to actually step forward and kind of internalize it as, problem solving. It would sort of, what would be nice would be to completely rebrand the course as how to solve problems. You know what I mean? And that would be, because it's kind of irrelevant, it's how to solve problems that may involve technology or not.
Yeah. Well, look, isn't that the goal of the whole freaking education system?
No.
Even English is how do I solve this problem of communicating this idea clearly?
I think you're missing the point. The whole point of the education system is to keep, all of these instructors off the streets, because otherwise, how will we deal with them in the community? It's about socializing all of these young people who, otherwise, what would they be doing? They'd be going out there and getting politically informed and somehow, restructuring.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Or high, one or the other.
God forbid that people should come out with their own mechanisms of education. We've got to impose this education on the children. We can't allow children and young people to sort of come up with their own ideas about how they might educate themselves or their own ideas about what they want to focus on. That would be chaos, anarchy. We'd end up with completely insane multi-billionaire nut jobs as president of the United States. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Anyway, it's been the end of a long week. I'm just babbling now. So, anything else that we should touch on?
Yeah, I've read some of your recent blogs. I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, no, you're not allowed. No, they're private. They're very secret. You're not allowed to read my blogs.
I wanted to follow up and say, well, I just, we got to think it sometime.
We've got to think
just figure out what life holds in store for us.
Yes.
501c3 application is going to be rejected now.
Oh, for me. Oh, right, for me, because I've been saying the wrong things.
For AV, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we'll just have to rebrand. That'll be the. We'll fire somebody. That's and say it was their fault. That's I think the way that we generally deal with stuff, don't we? Just
all I can say is, if you wait till your kids are grown, then you'll wind up having the same problem with your grandkids.
Okay, that's something exciting. Yeah, that's something exciting to look forward to. So some updates from me. I mean, I hope Armando with edX is going to be talking about the I don't know what he's going to talk about, but so yeah, the MOOC is still on hold, pending this kind of upgrade to the professional certificate thing, which I think requires some professionals to say that they approve the course, and I have actually sent a book proposal I called to a few people, including Pragmatic Programmers and Armando and Michael. And actually, in case you're interested in seeing it, Richard and Rose, I can post it in the BetaSaaSers channel, actually.
Absolutely.
Which is, I'm calling it What am I calling it? I'm calling it Open Source Agile Projects something management. That's it. That's what I'm calling it. And I have this as an idea for a book. Yeah, so I'm thinking that's something that I should do, is get that sorted. Your people's input from anybody very much appreciated on that. I kind of feel like I'm trying to, like, all the stuff I keep telling people I should like write it down in a book and see if that helps. So there, let's put that in there. And anything else? Yeah, I'm kind of away next week, although I may actually be back for Friday. So more available than I was today. Anything else to mention? We've been using C9 for our mobbing sessions, and it's been pretty stable and working well for us. Yeah, and I think that's about it. I don't know, is there anything else to mention? I've been speaking to a lot of charities. I just discovered today about how charities have to use these information management systems, and my mind is all in that space. Yeah.
Oh, can we go full circle?
Yeah, let's do that.
Post if you can on Slack where we're supposed to put our agenda items.
Well, I mean, I'll post the
issues, the
right,
GitHub issues.
I mean,
is that it?
That's what it was, a month ago. We haven't used it this year. I guess we've got an open question for ourselves about how. Oh, where do I post that link?
What is that document that I saw you typing, like text?
Yeah. Was that just like
hold on? Well, anyway,
local or?
This is just local, and I think this is the last couple of weeks I just did this. I mean, maybe we should revert to what we were doing originally, which is having the notes of the meeting and have them in the place that they are in the Agile Ventures website. I don't know. I mean, we're at a kind of we're at a kind of a crossroads there in terms of like what's the best way to serve, our needs really. I mean, I've kind of got to the point where I'm sort of, I kind of respond to stuff in email and get things done, but it's difficult to find the motivation to kind of go back through these things and then. Yeah. I mean, that looks like close.
I hate to say it because I started this, but I've got to run because I've got a meeting coming up.
Hey, no problem. No, we're kind of like we're kind of where we are. Yeah. So that's great. I think we can wrap up this week. We can carry on the conversation in Slack and see folks next week. I think it sounds like there's nothing on fire that we need to fix, and we just need to keep on creeping towards how we operate, effectively.
Okay.
All good.
Yeah. All right. Great.
Thanks for starting the meeting, Rose. That's much appreciated.
No problem. I just finally got coordinated enough to recall that I had to go to Firefox, not Chrome, and use the right email. And it's like so many stupid things.
I mean, the interesting thing is that all that functionality may disappear in April when Google goes, and so maybe we'll actually build a new system that's somehow easy to use. Stranger things have happened. But.
Well, yeah, amazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm knocking off. I'm going to stop the broadcast, and after my meeting, I'll post the link. Okay. Thanks.
Great stuff. Thanks, Rose. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for starting this.
Oh, no problem.